How do you keep moving forward when it feels like a part of you died with the person you lost? It doesn't matter how many times we try to prepare ourselves for loss. When it finally arrives, everything changes. Time suddenly stops. The world around you keeps spinning. People continue with their lives, unaware that your reality has collapsed. You find yourself standing still, frozen in a moment that feels endless, trapped in an emotional void, one that no one else seems to fully understand. Words of comfort, no matter how well-intentioned, seem empty. They don't make the pain go away. They don't quiet the aching silence inside. Something within you is screaming, without making a sound, begging for answers, for relief, for understanding. Death has always been the greatest mystery known to humankind. Since the dawn of time, it has frightened us. It wounds us. It strips us of our sense of control. And yet, paradoxically, it is the only certainty we are given in this life. It is the only thing we all must face. But what if I told you that loss, no matter how devastating, is not just an end? What if it's also the beginning of something else? Something new? Carl Jung, the father of deep psychology, understood something that many of us still struggle to grasp. He believed that death doesn't only transform the one who dies, it transforms the ones who are left behind. Because when we lose someone we love, we're not just mourning their absence, we're mourning a version of ourselves that will never return. Loss forces us to look inward, to confront questions we never wanted to ask. It pushes us to search for meaning in the chaos. It shakes the very foundation of our identity. Every goodbye holds within it an uncomfortable truth. Grief isn't only about the other person, it's about us. It's about who we were with them and who we are without them. And this is where Jung offers us a radically different perspective. He invites us to dive deep beneath the surface, into the hidden layers of our psyche. At the core of our unconscious mind lies something ancient, something universal, a pattern that connects every human being who has ever suffered a loss. Jung called it the collective unconscious. It's a shared reservoir of symbols, emotions, and meanings, a psychological network that transcends time, culture, and language. And within this vast landscape, there exists a powerful and primal image, the archetype of death. Throughout history, across every civilization and belief system, death has never simply been an end. It's been portrayed as a force of transformation. In ancient Egypt, it was the gateway to eternal life. In Buddhism, death marks the passage into another cycle of existence. Even in our dreams and myths, death often appears not as a final curtain, but as a threshold, a passage that opens the door to something new. And in the human mind, this metaphor lives on. The loss of someone we love initiates a deeply personal transformation. It's a process that tears us apart, but in doing so, it invites us to rebuild ourselves from the ashes. We emerge changed, not healed necessarily, but transformed. And that transformation can reveal depths within us we never knew existed. But here's the hard part. How do we find meaning in the midst of pain? How do you search for light when all you can see is darkness? How do you turn heartbreak into growth instead of letting it turn into a life sentence of suffering? That's the journey we're going to take together. In this video, we'll explore how to face the loss of a loved one through the lens of Carl Jung's deep psychology, not with resignation, but with understanding, not by forgetting, but by integrating that loss into the very fabric of who we are becoming. Because even if today your life feels meaningless, even if you're consumed by the unbearable weight of grief, there is a path, one that leads not only out of the pain, but into a deeper version of yourself. And it all begins by understanding the true meaning of grief, not just as an emotional reaction, but as a psychological transformation, one that touches the soul. In the next section, we'll uncover why death leaves such a profound imprint on the human psyche. We'll explore how the archetype of death influences our deepest emotions, often without us even realizing it. Because it's only by confronting this internal mythology, this unconscious narrative, that we can begin to turn our pain into something far more powerful than suffering. Death terrifies us. It forces us to face the unknown, the irreversible. It shatters our illusions of permanence. But ask yourself this: are we truly afraid of death itself? Or is it the idea of disappearing that really haunts us? Is it the thought of no longer existing, of being forgotten, of becoming nothing? That question is not just philosophical, it's deeply personal. And the way we answer it determines how we grieve, how we live, and ultimately, how we heal. Carl Jung understood it perfectly. Death is not just a biological event. It's a universal archetype, a primal image rooted in the collective unconscious, one that has shaped the way humanity experiences grief across time. From ancient civilizations to our modern era, death has taken on many forms and meanings. But there is one thing all interpretations have in common: its psychological impact is inescapable. And yet, why is it so hard for us to accept it? The answer is simple, though deeply uncomfortable. We live under the illusion of permanence. We convince ourselves that time is endless, that people will always be there, that we'll have all the time in the world to say what we feel, to do what we dream. Until one day, that person is gone, and reality hits like a tidal wave. We are finite. The ego, that part of us that believes it has control over everything, cannot accept this truth. It resists. It clings. Because to accept death is to accept that everything we've built, everything we love, everything we believe ourselves to be, will eventually vanish. That's why grief hurts so much. Because it's not just about losing someone else. It's about confronting our own mortality. And this is where myths, rituals, and beliefs come in. These are the tools we've created over the centuries to cope with an unbearable truth. The Egyptians built pyramids to ensure life after death. The Aztecs celebrated the Day of the Dead to honor their ancestors. Tibetan monks practiced death meditations, visualizing their own end to dissolve fear. Each culture, in its own way, developed paths to give meaning to the inevitable. But what do we have today? We live in a world that has stripped away the rituals, a society that tells us we must move on quickly, that grief must be buried, pain pushed aside, life resumed as if nothing happened. And here lies the real problem. When we ignore the deeper meaning of death, we rob ourselves of one of the most powerful teachings it can offer: the opportunity to look inward, to question our existence, to give our lives true meaning before it's too late. So how do we begin to face this? How can we accept death without being consumed by fear? How do we transform grief from a bottomless pit into a process of growth and awakening? The answer lies in understanding grief as a process of inner transformation, a journey that doesn't just plunge us into pain, but also reveals truths we would otherwise continue to ignore. Because even when it feels like the world has stopped, something within us keeps moving, and that changes everything. Grief is a storm, a chaotic process where we drown, we resist, and eventually we learn to float. But the hardest truth to accept is that there are no shortcuts. We cannot bypass the pain. We cannot pretend it isn't there. Carl Jung knew that when someone we love dies, it doesn't just take their presence away. It forces us to confront a brutal mirror, the mirror of our own psyche. Every stage of grief is a door. Each one pushes us to look inward. Each one drags us, whether we like it or not, into a deeper part of ourselves. It all begins with denial. That first moment when we say to ourselves, "This can't be happening. It's not real." But what are we really denying? When Jung spoke of the shadow, he referred to those parts of ourselves we hide, parts we don't want to see. In denial, the shadow becomes a shelter. We convince ourselves everything is the same. We cling to routine as if nothing has changed. But deep down, we know something inside us already has. In denial, we bury fear, guilt, and the deepest sadness. We believe that if we don't look at it, it'll go away. But all we really do is push the pain further down until it eventually erupts. Then comes anger. When denial can no longer hold us together, rage surfaces. We lash out at ourselves, at others, at God, at the universe. We look for someone to blame. We ask, why did this happen? Why me? Jung explained that many of our unresolved emotions get projected onto the outside world. It's not that we truly hate others. It's that the pain is too much to carry alone. Sometimes, anger turns into resentment. Other times, into self-destruction. But beneath all rage is a truth we are afraid to face. What we really feel is fear. Because when the anger fades, what's left? The mind's next attempt to escape reality is bargaining. The ego, desperate to regain control, starts looking for impossible solutions. If I had done something different, this wouldn't have happened. If I try hard enough, maybe the pain will go away. We cling to the belief that somehow we can undo the inevitable. But deep down, we know this stage is only a pause before the final blow. And when bargaining fails, the truth strikes fully. That's when the deepest sadness appears. In this phase, all the noise vanishes. There's no more struggle, no more justifications, only a vast, overwhelming emptiness. But contrary to what many believe, depression during grief is not an illness. It's a bridge, an invitation to the deepest parts of our psyche. Carl Jung often spoke about the importance of confronting our darkness, of daring to dive deep into the unconscious without fear. According to him, it's only in that depth, away from the noise of the surface, where we can truly find the answers we're seeking. It's in that hidden realm where transformation becomes possible. This is precisely where grief becomes more than just pain. It becomes a portal to something greater. When we stop running from the sadness, when we stop resisting, and instead allow ourselves to feel everything without judgment or struggle, something inside us begins to shift. This isn't resignation. It's not about forgetting. It's not about letting go in the way people often imagine. No, this is a rebirth. Reaching the final stage of grief doesn't mean the pain goes away. It doesn't mean we're suddenly whole again, or that the wound magically disappears. What it truly means is that we learn how to live with that pain. We stop fighting it. We learn to walk with it, hand in hand. Acceptance is not about erasing what happened. It's not about replacing what was lost. It's about integrating it, making it part of who we are. Jung said that true individuation, the process of becoming who we truly are, only happens when we stop identifying with what we've lost. We begin to understand that love doesn't die with the person. It doesn't vanish. It transforms. It becomes something deeper, something that exists, not in the external world, but within us. That's the moment when we realize that life goes on, not because the loss meant nothing, but because it meant everything. Too much, in fact, to let it dissolve into despair. Clara understood this when her brother died suddenly. For months, she lived in denial, repeating to herself that he would come back, convincing herself that it had all been a mistake. Then came the anger, the fury at life, the bitterness, the screaming at the heavens. She tried to bargain with fate, pleading for a different outcome. But eventually, she fell into a deep sadness where nothing made sense anymore. The world turned grey. Time slowed down. She felt empty, hollow, and yet, in that silence, something shifted. It was quiet, almost imperceptible, but it was real. She began to understand that her brother hadn't truly left. He was there in every memory, in every lesson he ever taught her, in every part of herself that had been transformed by his love and presence. She never stopped missing him. She never stopped loving him. But she did learn how to move forward, carrying him not as a weight, but as a part of her. Because grief is not just about losing someone. It's about rediscovering yourself on a level you never thought possible. You cannot avoid the pain of grief. No one can. But what you can do is allow it to guide you, to become your compass through the darkness. And when you do, your life will never be the same again. Grief doesn't just take the person you love, it also confronts you with something even more terrifying: yourself. It holds up a mirror and forces you to look into the corners of your soul you've always avoided. Losing someone is like switching on a light in the darkest room of your mind. And what you find there isn't always what you expected. Carl Jung referred to it as the shadow, all those hidden parts of ourselves that we've repressed, denied, or buried over the course of our lives. These aspects of the psyche don't disappear just because we refuse to look at them. On the contrary, they wait silently in the background, shaping our behavior, our relationships, and the way we interpret the world. The shadow contains our deepest fears, our most unspoken insecurities, our unresolved guilt, and the silent griefs we never allowed ourselves to feel. And one of the most powerful catalysts that can bring all of this to the surface is grief. Grief has a strange and mysterious power. It doesn't simply overwhelm us with sadness over what we've lost. It cracks open something much deeper. Suddenly, we're not just mourning a person. We're confronting the fear of being left alone, the regret over words left unspoken, the helpless feeling that maybe, just maybe, we could have done something differently. It's not just about what's gone. It's about what lingers, what remains inside us, like a haunting echo. When someone dies, a part of us dies too. But it's not just about the departure of the other. It's about the confrontation with the parts of ourselves that have been quietly asleep, or worse, deliberately ignored. Grief reveals what was hidden: the fear of loneliness, the fear of not being enough, the fear that life may never feel the same again. It reawakens the guilt for the things we didn't say, the chances we didn't take, the time we wasted thinking there would always be more. Suddenly, time stops being infinite. Suddenly, we realize that it slips through our fingers without warning. And in that stillness, we begin to ask the most human question of all: what if? But here's something very few people truly understand. Those feelings of guilt and fear don't emerge to torment us. They were always there. They simply lived hidden, buried under our daily routines, disguised by distractions, camouflaged beneath the noise of everyday life. Grief doesn't invent new pain. It simply strips away the illusions and forces us to look at the pain that has always been there, waiting. Anna lived this truth in the most intimate way. When her mother passed away, she felt something inside her shatter. She expected the sadness. She even expected the tears. What she didn't expect was the emotional tsunami that followed. The anger, the shame, the guilt, the unbearable weight of everything she had kept, locked away for so long. For years, she had avoided confronting the complicated relationship she had with her mother. There were things left unsaid, grudges never resolved, wounds never healed. And now, in the silence left by her absence, all of it surfaced, like a tidal wave. She found herself trapped, not just in mourning for her mother, but in mourning for all the parts of herself that she had repressed. That is the true depth of grief. It's not only about what you lost, it's about what you were never brave enough to face. It's about who you were before and who you must become after. It's uncomfortable, it's painful, but it's also an opportunity. Because when we dare to look within, when we choose to stop running and instead embrace the shadow, we begin to change. Something within us begins to shift, not temporarily, but permanently. Grief, if we allow it, can become more than a goodbye. It can be a homecoming, a return to the most honest and authentic version of who we are. The pain of loss can feel like a bottomless pit, a void that no amount of distraction, time, or advice can ever seem to fill. But what if that very pain could become something more? Carl Jung didn't see suffering as a dead end. He saw it as a sacred process of transformation. Every grief is, in its own way, a psychological initiation. It's not just about letting go of the one who has passed. It's about encountering a new version of yourself, one who has walked through the fire and emerged changed. When someone we love is no longer with us, the world doesn't just change on the outside, it changes on the inside. And this is where many people get stuck, clinging to what was, resisting the flow of transformation, holding tightly to an identity that no longer fits. But Jung taught that pain can be alchemy. Pain can be the raw material for rebirth. The problem is that most of us have been taught to avoid suffering at all costs. We are told to get over it, to move on, to stay strong. But grief is not something you get over. It is something you integrate. And to integrate it, you must move through it with awareness, not avoiding it, not repressing it, but feeling it, understanding it, and allowing it to transform you. There are powerful ways to do this. One of them is symbolic writing. Take a blank sheet of paper and write a letter to the person you lost. Say everything you never said. Express, without fear, what your heart is still holding. Sometimes, what hurts the most is not just their absence, but the silence left by the words we never dared to speak while they were alive. Another powerful tool is active visualization. Carl Jung used it as a way to communicate with his unconscious, allowing the mind to create images and dialogues that revealed what truly needed to be healed. To close your eyes, imagine the person you've lost, speak to them, and listen to what their presence has to tell you. This, too, is a form of healing. And then there are personal rituals, not necessarily religious, but deeply symbolic acts that help us give the loss a rightful place in the story of our lives. It could be something as simple as lighting a candle every day in their honor, visiting a place that held meaning for you both, or creating a space of remembrance that connects you with everything they represented to you. The goal is not to forget. The goal is to transform the pain into something that helps you grow. because deep sorrow, too, can be the seed of an inner rebirth. When we stop seeing grief as an enemy and begin to understand it as a teacher, something profound is revealed. What we've lost in the physical world remains alive in our psyche, in our thoughts, in our memories, in the imprints left on our lives. It's not an easy path, but those who dare to walk it are never the same again. When someone we love leaves, we feel as if their absence consumes everything. We believe the emptiness will last forever and that we will never feel whole again. But grief, like every deep process of the psyche, is not just an end. It's also a threshold, a portal to something else. Carl Jung spoke of a fascinating phenomenon called synchronicity, those meaningful coincidences that seem far too perfect to be random. After a great loss, many people begin to notice these signs: a song that plays at just the right moment, a dream that reveals a hidden truth, an object that appears just when you needed it most. From the perspective of depth psychology, these are not just emotional comforts. They are manifestations of the unconscious, guiding us, reminding us that what we have lost has not entirely disappeared. The person we loved continues to live within us, not in a literal sense, but in a way that is even more powerful. In how they transformed us, in the way their existence helped shape who we are now. Their voice, their gestures, their lessons, everything remains inscribed within us. Life after loss is not about forgetting, it's about integrating, it's about evolving. Martin understood this deeply. He was a man who lost his wife after 20 years of marriage. For months, the pain was unbearable. He felt his life had lost all meaning without her. Then one day, he found an old notebook she used to write in, filled with reflections, thoughts, and quotes about life. In those pages, he discovered a sentence that changed everything. "If I ever leave before you, I want you to keep loving life for the both of us." That moment marked a turning point. He realized that his grief didn't have to be a life sentence of sorrow. It could be an invitation to honor her memory through his own existence. From then on, Martin devoted himself to helping others going through the same pain, turning his loss into a new purpose, a deeper way of living. Every loss leaves us with a fundamental question: what emotional legacy did that person leave in my life? A powerful way to gain clarity is to pause and reflect. What did they teach me that I never valued before? How did they change my view of the world? What values or ideals can I continue to honor in their name? Because the true presence of a person doesn't lie in their physical body, but in the transformation they sparked within us. And when we understand this, truly understand it, we realize that loss doesn't destroy us. It rebuilds us in ways we never imagined possible. Losing someone you love is one of life's greatest trials. It breaks you. It steals your breath. It leaves you wondering whether you'll ever feel whole again. But there's something we're rarely told. The pain of grief doesn't just take something from us. It also gives us something new. It's a cruel paradox, and yet a beautiful one. Because although the emptiness is real, and although the absence weighs heavily, within that same pain lies a seed of transformation. Something in us changes forever. We become a new version of ourselves, shaped by the loss, but also enriched by everything that person meant to us. Death is not just an ending, it's also a beginning. Jung understood that everything within the psyche is part of an evolutionary process. Nothing dies without leaving a trace. Nothing disappears without first transforming us. And grief, though often walked in solitude, is also a bridge toward a deeper understanding of life itself. And if these words resonated with you, if at any point you felt like we were telling your story, then maybe this message didn't reach you by accident. Maybe this was the exact moment you needed to be reminded that even in the depths of pain, you still have the power to transform your life. Because healing doesn't mean forgetting. Healing means loving again, trusting again, living again, more deeply, more consciously, with more heart. If this video touched your soul, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you won't miss any content that can support you on this journey of inner growth. And please, share this video with someone who truly needs it. You never know how much of a difference a single message can make when it arrives at the right time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for allowing yourself to feel. And most of all, thank you for continuing.
Attachment is not love. We've been taught that love hurts, that when someone truly matters to you, you should fear losing them. That loving means needing, clinging, depending. But Carl Jung left us with a truth that few dare to accept. Attachment is not love. It is fear in disguise. When you attach yourself to someone, it's not just because you love them. It's because deep down you feel that without them, something in you is incomplete. You feel that without their presence, your life loses meaning. You feel that without their validation, your worth as a person diminishes. You feel that without their love, something in you breaks. But here's the truth. That is not love. It is emotional dependence. Real love is expansion, not confinement. It is sharing from a place of freedom, not emptiness. It is being with someone because you choose to, not because you need them to feel complete. Yet most people confuse love with attachment because they've experienced relationships where the fear of losing was stronger than the desire to share. And this is where I want you to ask yourself something. Do you truly love that person, or are you just afraid to be without them? How attachment masquerades as love. Attachment is not just feeling like you need someone in your life. It's feeling that without them, you lose a part of yourself. And it's easy to justify. It's easy to say you love someone so much that you can't imagine life without them. But the problem isn't loving. The problem is believing that without that person, love disappears. If you believe love exists only in another and not within you, you become a prisoner of that bond. If you believe you need someone to feel worthy, your happiness will always depend on external factors. If you feel that without them, you lose stability, it means you are using them as an anchor to hold yourself up. And here's the hardest truth to accept. When attachment governs your life, fear becomes a driving force of your relationship. Fear of change, fear of distance, fear that they will stop loving you, fear that one day they will no longer be there. That is not love. It is fear of loss. When you love, you add. When you attach, you cling. The difference between love and attachment is simple. Love allows you to be yourself without fear of losing. Attachment makes you feel that without the other, you are not enough. Love flows, attachment traps. Love is free, attachment is possessive. Love complements, attachment depends. If you feel that without this person, you would fall apart, it is not love. It is a sign that you have placed your happiness in someone else's hands. And this is where detachment becomes necessary. Not because you have to walk away from the person, but because you need to restore the most important relationship in your life, the one you have with yourself. Because when you depend emotionally on someone, you give them control over your well-being. If they stay, you're happy. If they leave, you fall apart. And deep down, you know that's not healthy. Loving without depending, the balance few achieve. Carl Jung said that love does not need to possess. It only needs to understand. When you love from connection instead of dependency, you stop needing control. When you understand that no one is responsible for your happiness, you stop clinging. When you realize that love is not a limited resource, you stop fearing that it will run out. Because real love is not fear, it is not anxiety, it is not anguish at the thought of losing. Real love is freedom. But to experience it, you must first free yourself from attachment. You must learn to let go without fear. You must understand that detachment does not mean losing. It means reclaiming your peace. And now comes the most important question. How do you let go without feeling like you're losing something? How do you release without being left with emptiness? That is what we will discover in the next part. Because detaching from someone does not mean giving up on love. It means reclaiming yourself. A quick stop. Letting go of someone doesn't mean losing. It means reclaiming your freedom. Letting go is one of the hardest experiences for a human being. Since childhood, we are taught that true love is the one that lasts forever, that when someone truly matters, we should do everything possible to keep them close. We have been conditioned to believe that detachment is synonymous with failure, that letting go means losing. But here's the truth that few are willing to accept. Letting go of someone doesn't mean losing. It means freeing yourself from the idea that your happiness depends on their presence. Love should not be a prison. You shouldn't live in constant fear that this person might change, leave, or one day choose a different path. Because when fear takes over, love becomes a burden instead of a gift. Carl Jung once said that nothing has a stronger psychological influence on its surroundings than the unlived life of a parent. But this phrase doesn't just apply to parents. It applies to any relationship. When you sacrifice your essence to be with someone, when you abandon parts of yourself to sustain a bond, when you stay where you are no longer happy out of fear of letting go, you are giving up your own life. And that is the greatest loss of all. The fear of letting go is not love. It is dependency. If the thought of letting someone go terrifies you, ask yourself this. Is it really love that binds you, or is it the fear of being alone? Sometimes, we believe we can't let go of someone because we love them too much. But if you dig deeper into that emotion, you will often discover that what truly holds you back is the fear of not finding someone else to connect with, the fear of facing yourself without the distraction of a relationship, the fear that the emptiness you feel will grow even larger. But here's the irony. The emptiness was already there before that person came into your life. You just disguise it by being with someone. You believe their love filled that void, but the truth is that no one can fill a void that only you can heal. Letting go of someone doesn't mean that person wasn't important. It doesn't mean you have to forget what you lived. It doesn't mean the love wasn't real. It means you choose to put yourself first. You choose your peace over a relationship that drains you. You choose to regain your energy instead of exhausting yourself over someone who is no longer present. You choose to move forward instead of staying trapped in what once was. Letting go doesn't mean stopping love. It means stopping the suffering. Many people believe that detachment means becoming cold, cutting ties completely, or erasing the past. But true detachment is not the absence of love. You can let go of someone and still appreciate what they meant in your life. You can move on without resentment. You can continue forward without erasing the past, but without remaining stuck in it. The difference between letting go with love and letting go with suffering lies in how you interpret the farewell. If you see detachment as a loss, it will hurt, as if something that belongs to you is being taken away. But if you see it as an act of love toward yourself, as an opportunity to reclaim your space, your energy, and your freedom, then letting go becomes an open door, not an ending. When you cling, you chain yourself. If you have ever tried to hold on to a relationship at all costs, you know that the more you cling, the more you suffer. The more you try to hold on to someone who wants to leave, the more you exhaust yourself. The more you fight to restore something that is already broken, the more frustrated you become. Because attachment does not strengthen bonds, it suffocates them. If love is real, it doesn't need to be forced. If the connection is genuine, it is sustained not by fear, but by choice. If someone truly wants to be in your life, they will be, without you having to convince them. That's why, when you cling to someone who is no longer emotionally present, you chain yourself to an illusion. You become trapped in the idea of what the relationship once was, what it could have been, in the version of the person you once knew, who perhaps no longer exists. But tell me something. How much longer do you plan to hold on to what is already left? How much more energy will you waste on someone who may have already moved on? Letting go is reclaiming your power. When you let go, you realize that the only person you truly need in your life is yourself. Not because others don't matter, but because self-love is the foundation of any healthy relationship. You cannot love from a place of lack. You cannot share your life if you do not belong to yourself first. You cannot build a strong connection if the fear of losing is always present. Letting go does not mean losing. It means reclaiming your space, choosing yourself again, opening yourself to new possibilities. It means trusting that what is meant for you will come without being forced. And now tell me, are you going to keep holding on to what no longer is, or are you going to take back your power? Because in the next point, you will discover how to heal without closing your heart, how to let go without shutting yourself off from love. When we lose someone who is important in our lives, the pain is inevitable. It feels like something inside us breaks, like a part of our identity crumbles with that person's absence. And this is where many people make the biggest mistake. Either they remain trapped in suffering, reliving the past over and over, or they become cold, closing themselves off from love to avoid feeling pain again. But Carl Jung taught us something fundamental. What you deny controls you. What you accept transforms you. If you try to heal by ignoring what you feel, you'll only push it deeper within you, and sooner or later it will resurface, disguised as fear, mistrust, or insecurity. Healing is not forgetting. Healing is not repressing. Healing is learning to feel without getting stuck in pain. And the key to doing that is allowing yourself to go through the process without fearing what it might awaken in you, the mistake of repressing pain. We live in a society that teaches us to quickly move past what hurts us. They tell us that time heals everything, that we must be strong, that moving forward is simply about distracting ourselves and not thinking too much. But that is not healing, that is avoidance. Because the pain you do not process stays within you. It turns into resentment, into fear of trusting again, into a wall you build between yourself and love. Have you ever met someone who, after a failed relationship, says things like, "I will never fall in love again. I can't trust anyone anymore. Love only brings suffering"? That person is not healed. They have merely closed their heart to avoid feeling vulnerable again. And instead of learning from their experience, they live in a constant state of protection, avoiding any real connection for fear of being hurt once more. But tell me, what is the point of protecting yourself from love if, in the process, you also deprive yourself of experiencing it? Feeling the pain is part of the process. If you truly want to heal, you cannot skip the pain. You have to face it. You have to allow yourself to feel the sadness, the anger, the nostalgia. You have to accept that it is normal to miss someone who was once important to you. You have to let every emotion run its course without trying to block it, because the pain you accept dissolves. But the pain you repress becomes a burden you carry for years. Don't be afraid to feel. Don't punish yourself for being sad. Don't think that just because you've chosen to let go, you no longer have the right to experience grief. Only when you allow yourself to feel without clinging to suffering can you truly heal. Healing doesn't mean closing your heart. Many people believe that the only way to avoid suffering again is to shut down. They decide they will never trust anyone again. They convince themselves it's better not to take another risk. They build walls around their hearts to avoid feeling pain again. But that is not the solution. Protecting yourself from love doesn't make you stronger. It only makes you lonelier. If you've been hurt, if you've had to let someone go, if love has brought you pain in the past, that doesn't mean it will always be that way. Every person who enters your life is a different experience. Every connection has something new to teach you. Every story is unique. If you close yourself off because of what has already happened, you will be denying yourself the chance to live something better. Don't let a negative experience define your ability to love. Don't let fear decide for you. Don't let the pain of the past become the reason you refuse to open your heart in the future. Because healing is not just about letting go of pain. It's about learning to trust again. How do you let go without becoming hardened? This is where many people get confused. They think detachment means becoming cold, indifferent, distant. That to avoid suffering, they must cut off all emotion at the root. That to heal, they must convince themselves they never cared. But detachment is not disconnection. It's not about becoming immune to emotions, but learning to experience them without getting trapped in them. It's not about forgetting what you've lived through, but about learning from it without resentment. It's not about stopping love, but understanding that love was never something you were meant to own. Carl Jung said that the key to emotional freedom is integrating the experience without clinging to it, being grateful for what was without needing to relive it, learning from what you've lived without fearing it will repeat, making space for the new without carrying the old. That is healing. It's not running from love, but finding a healthier way to experience it. It's not about hardening yourself, but learning to feel without depending. It's not about forgetting the one you loved, but releasing them with gratitude instead of pain. Love is not the problem. The problem is how you've interpreted it until now. If you've experienced it from a place of lack, you will see it as suffering. If you've lived it through attachment, you will believe you are nothing without it. If you've used it to fill emptiness, you will feel broken without the other person. But when you learn to love without fear, without dependence, without possession, then you realize that love is not something that comes from outside. Love has always been within you. And once you truly understand that, you will never be afraid to let go again. The real power is in moving forward. Now that you know that letting go doesn't mean losing, now that you understand that healing doesn't mean closing your heart, there's one last question. How do you transform this entire process into real growth? Because letting go and healing should not leave you empty. They should turn you into someone stronger, more aware, more whole. And that is what we will explore in the next part. The end of a love story is not the end of your life. It is the beginning of something much greater, transforming pain into growth, using the experience to make you stronger. The pain of letting go of someone can feel like an open wound. It can make you doubt yourself, wonder what you did wrong, relive memories over and over in your mind. But there is something you need to understand. Suffering is only destructive when you don't use it to grow. Carl Jung said that without pain, there is no awareness. The experiences that hurt us the most don't come into our lives to destroy us, but to reveal something we had refused to see. They force us out of what is familiar and push us to a higher level of consciousness, teaching us what we need to learn about ourselves. But many people get stuck in their pain. They relive it over and over again, using it to justify their distrust. They identify so deeply with their suffering that it becomes a part of their identity. But this is where you have a choice. You can allow pain to consume you, or you can use it as fuel for your transformation. Every experience you've lived through, every loss, every disappointment, has left something within you. Maybe you learned that you cannot rely on someone else to make you happy. Maybe you realized that you never set boundaries, and that led you to lose yourself in a relationship. Maybe you discovered that you had settled for less than what you truly deserved. Pain has a purpose. It is showing you something about yourself that you hadn't wanted to face. And if, instead of asking, why did this happen to me, you start asking, what can I learn from this? Everything changes. Because now, pain is no longer a punishment but a tool for growth. If it left you feeling insecure, use it to build a stronger sense of self-confidence. If it made you feel lost, use it to reconnect with what you truly want. If it taught you that you gave too much without receiving the same in return, use it to learn how to set healthy boundaries. Every scar is a reminder that you went through something difficult and survived. But the difference between someone who remains trapped in the past and someone who has evolved lies in how they choose to use their experience. Many people believe that letting go of someone means losing a part of themselves. But the truth is that when you let go of someone, you find yourself. Because letting go does not mean forgetting what was lived, but rather learning how to move forward without staying trapped in the story. And this is where real transformation happens. If, after a painful experience, you remain the same person, it means you haven't learned the lesson. But if you allow that experience to help you grow, then nothing you went through was in vain. Here's the key. Pain should not make you harder. It should make you wiser. You should not close yourself off to love, but learn to love without fear. You should not stop trusting, but instead learn to recognize who truly deserves your trust. You should not carry resentment, but learn to let go with gratitude for what you experienced. Life is not about avoiding pain. It's about learning from it, transforming it, and turning it into something that makes you stronger. Your story does not end here. If you are going through a process of detachment, if letting go of someone feels harder than you imagined, I want you to remember something. You are not losing. You are evolving. You are not leaving behind a part of yourself. You are discovering a stronger version of yourself. You are not giving up on love. You are learning to experience it in a healthier way. You are not doomed to repeat the same suffering. You are gaining the wisdom to avoid falling into the same patterns. And now, ask yourself this. How will you use this experience to grow? Because the story you live can no longer be changed, but the story you will write from now on is entirely in your hands. And this leads us to the most important step of all, moving forward with fulfillment, without fear, without chains. That is what we will explore in the final point. Because letting go of someone is not just about closing a chapter. It is an opportunity to open yourself to an entirely new life. Moving forward with fulfillment. Building a life where attachment is no longer a chain. Detachment from someone is not just about letting go of a relationship. It's about releasing the idea that you need someone else to feel complete. It's about returning to yourself, reclaiming your energy, and learning to live from a place of freedom rather than dependence. But many people, even after letting go, remain chained to past. They keep revisiting memories, secretly hoping that person will come back, clinging to the idea of what could have been. Without realizing it, they turned attachment into a silent waiting game. But here's the truth. You cannot move forward while still looking back. You cannot build something new if you're still trapped in the old. You cannot feel free if you're still carrying the chains of attachment. The invisible attachment, the story of someone who couldn't let go. Imagine someone who ends a relationship. They say they've moved on, that they're fine, that they've let go. But every night, they scroll through their last conversation. Every time they hear a song that reminds them of that love, they feel a knot in their stomach. Every time they meet someone new, they compare them to the person they lost. On the surface, it seems like they've moved on, but in their mind, they're still bound. They keep replaying every detail, wondering what they could have done differently. Deep down, they still hope destiny will give them another chance. They feel that without that person, something inside them is no longer the same. That is not freedom. It is an emotional prison where the past still controls the present. And the most dangerous part? Most people don't even realize they're still trapped. They convince themselves that they're fine, that time will fix everything, that eventually the pain will fade. But here's the question you need to ask yourself. Have you truly let go, or have you just gotten used to carrying the memory? The emptiness you believe that person left behind was always there. If you think about someone you've lost and feel a void inside, I want you to remember something. That person didn't create that emptiness. That emptiness was always within you. The only difference is that while they were in your life, you believed they filled it. You thought their love gave you something you didn't know how to give yourself. You believed their presence covered a part of you that you didn't want to face. That's why when they left, it felt like you lost more than just them. You felt like you lost a part of yourself. But here's the truth that few are willing to accept. No one can complete you. If you feel empty, the solution is not to find someone else to fill the void. The solution is to discover what part of yourself you continue to abandon. Because if you don't, you will keep repeating the same cycle, clinging to the next person, hoping that this time will be different. You will build your happiness around another relationship, believing that if it works this time, you won't suffer again, and you will lose yourself in someone else, not realizing that the only relationship you ever truly needed to heal was the one with yourself. Imagine waking up every day with the certainty that nothing external defines your well-being. Imagine loving without the fear of losing, because you understand that no one can take away what you have already found within yourself. Imagine being truly free, not because you have no ties, but because your ties no longer come from need, but from wholeness. That is what it truly means to move forward. It's not about forgetting the people who were important to you. It's not about becoming indifferent or cold. It's not about pretending it didn't hurt to lose them. It's about understanding that love is not measured by how much you suffer when someone leaves. It's about remembering that your worth does not change depending on who is in your life or who is no longer there. It's about reclaiming your power. Life goes on with or without them. The question is, are you moving forward with it? There are people who spend their entire lives looking back, trapped in a story that has already ended. They keep waiting for answers that will never come. They feel nostalgia for something that was never as perfect as they remember. And meanwhile, life keeps moving forward without them. Every day you remain anchored to the past is a day lost in the present. Every time you cling to someone who is no longer there, you close the door to what could come next. Every time you convince yourself that you cannot be happy without that person, you steal from yourself the opportunity to discover that you actually can. So tell me, how much longer will you keep giving your energy to what no longer exists? How much longer will you let attachment keep you chained to a story that has already ended? How much longer will you postpone your true freedom? Because when you truly decide to move on, something changes inside you. You realize you don't need to go back to who you were, because you are building something better. You realize that love was never lost, because it still lives within you. You realize that life is not taking anything away from you. It's simply showing you that you can be happy without depending on anyone else. That is true liberation. When you understand that no one can complete you because you are already whole. When you stop expecting something external to fill a void that only you can heal. When you realize that love is not possession, it is presence. It is not necessity, it is choice. The day you understand this, attachment stops being a chain. The day you understand this, you stop being a prisoner of a story that has already ended. The day you understand this, you finally begin to live. So tell me, are you ready to stop looking back and start moving forward without fear? Because once you truly understand this, there is no turning back. You move forward, but this time without chains.
Have you ever felt like there's something in your mind that keeps you from being truly happy? As if an invisible pattern holds you captive in the same cycles of thought, the same habits, and the same emotions that seem to prevent you from moving forward. Carl Jung, the great pioneer of depth psychology, dedicated his life to studying these patterns and arrived at a surprising conclusion. Happiness is not something we seek outside of ourselves. It is something we uncover within, in the way we interpret and process our own reality. The problem is that, more often than not, we fail to realize that we have been conditioned to think a certain way. Our childhood, society, our past experiences, all of these elements have shaped our perception of the world and of ourselves, often without us even noticing. And this is where one of Jung's fundamental concepts comes into play: the unconscious. Deep within us, in the most hidden layers of our psyche, there exists a collection of beliefs, memories, and repressed experiences that influence us without our awareness. Imagine your mind as a vast ocean. On the surface, you find everything you know, everything you remember, and everything you believe yourself to be. But beneath that surface, in the deep, uncharted waters, lies an entire world of hidden forces, shadows and archetypes that shape your behavior, your decisions, and most importantly, your ability to find happiness. The real problem is that most people live solely on the surface. They never dare to dive into the depths of their own minds. And yet, it is precisely in those depths where the key to transforming your mental framework lies. Jung spoke of a crucial concept: the shadow. The shadow is that part of ourselves that we have rejected, hidden away because it did not fit into what society or our families expected of us. It contains everything we were told was wrong, everything that should not be expressed, everything that had to be suppressed. But what no one told us is that whatever we repress does not simply disappear. It becomes a silent force that continues to influence our lives from the unconscious. Every time you act in a way you do not fully understand, every time you repeat a pattern of behavior that seems to sabotage you, there is a good chance that it is your shadow manifesting itself. That is why Jung urges us to do something that few people dare to do: face it. Because true mental transformation does not occur when we force ourselves to be positive or when we repeat empty affirmations. It happens when we have the courage to look within ourselves, to examine the stories we have been telling ourselves, and most importantly, to rewrite those stories. Think about this for a moment. If you constantly tell yourself that you are not enough, that you do not deserve success, that happiness is something others can have, but that somehow always escapes you, what do you think will happen? Your unconscious mind will seek confirmation of those beliefs, and without you even realizing it, it will sabotage any opportunity that challenges that narrative. This is not magic, it is psychology. It is the law of projection that Jung described. We see in the world what we carry within us. If you constantly find yourself surrounded by people who do not value you, if you remain trapped in relationships that drain you, if opportunities seem to slip away just when you are about to seize them, Jung would say that this is no coincidence. It is a reflection of the hidden beliefs you hold about yourself. And here is the crucial point. Those beliefs are not set in stone. You can change them. But in order to do so, you must first bring them into the light. And this brings us to a fundamental concept, the process of individuation. This is the journey of integrating all aspects of yourself, both the conscious and the unconscious, to become a whole, authentic being. It is not an easy process. It requires confronting your fears, embracing the parts of yourself you once rejected, and ultimately breaking free from the limitations imposed by the mind. But once you begin this journey, once you take the first step towards true self-awareness, everything begins to change. Carl Jung believed that the purpose of life is not simply to fit in or to live according to the expectations of others. Instead, it is about discovering who you truly are. This journey of self-discovery is not something that happens overnight. It is a deep and ongoing process. Along the way, you begin to question what you once believed to be true. Let go of what no longer serves you, and integrate the parts of yourself that you may have previously rejected. However, this path requires immense courage because it means facing aspects of yourself that you might not like. It means admitting that, at times, you have acted out of fear, and that many of your decisions were not truly yours, but were influenced by societal conditioning, upbringing, or external pressures. This realization can be uncomfortable, but the alternative is to continue living on autopilot, unaware that you are the one holding the keys to your own chains. So, the real question is, are you willing to look within? Are you ready to challenge the beliefs that you have accepted as absolute truth for so long? Because if you do, if you truly dare to face your shadow, you will discover something extraordinary. Beneath all the layers of conditioning and fear, there exists a part of you that has always known the truth. A part that knows you are capable, that you deserve happiness, and that you have the power to change your reality at any given moment. But to access that truth, you must first silence the noise and turn inward. When you begin to question your own thought patterns, something inside you shifts. It's as if you are waking up from a long sleep in which you believed that the world was only one way. Now, you start to see that there is another reality, another way to live and perceive the world, one that you had never considered before. Jung described this as the process of bringing the unconscious into consciousness. And here lies the key. You cannot change what you are not aware of. Only when you recognize the patterns that have been limiting you can you begin to transform them. But how do you recognize these patterns? There is a simple way. Observe the areas of your life where you feel the most resistance, where things seem harder than they should be. Do you struggle to maintain healthy relationships? Do you sabotage yourself just before achieving a goal? Do you feel like success is something meant for others, but not for you? In each of these situations, there is a hidden message. These challenges are the manifestations of your shadow, the parts of you that remain unintegrated, and until you bring them to light, they will continue to show up in your life again and again. Most people choose to ignore these signs. It's easier to blame fate, bad luck, or others for our struggles. But Jung offered a powerful insight. The outer world is merely a reflection of our inner world. Everything you experience in your reality is, in some way, a manifestation of your psyche. If there is something in your life that causes you pain or frustration, instead of looking outward for someone to blame, the real solution is to look inward and ask yourself, what part of me is creating this? This process is not easy. It requires humility to admit that many of our beliefs and behaviors have been adopted without question. From childhood, we learn what success, love, and happiness mean based on what we observe around us. But we rarely stop to ask whether these definitions actually serve us, whether they truly bring us fulfillment. We live repeating inherited patterns without realizing that we have the power to choose differently. And that is the key. You can choose to think differently, feel differently, and live differently. You can reprogram your mind. Jung understood that the unconscious is not merely a storage place for repressed memories. It is also an endless source of wisdom. Deep within you, there is a voice that has always been there, waiting for you to listen. It is not the voice of fear, nor of the ego, nor of society. It is the voice of your true essence, the part of you that knows what you genuinely need to be happy. But to hear it, you must first quiet all the external noise. One of the greatest obstacles to shifting our mindset is our attachment to the identity we have constructed. We identify with our struggles, our wounds, and our personal history. If you have always been someone who has to fight for everything, someone who suffers and sacrifices, then letting go of that identity can feel like losing a part of yourself, and that can be terrifying. But Jung teaches us that true transformation happens when we stop identifying with the limited version of ourselves and start seeing ourselves for what we truly are, beings in constant evolution. This is where the concept of individuation comes in. It is not just about knowing yourself. It is about becoming the best version of yourself, the person you were always meant to be. But to achieve this, you must let go of old stories, fears, doubts, and everything that no longer aligns with your new path. And this doesn't happen overnight. It is a process, a journey of letting go, questioning, and rewriting your internal narrative. At this very moment, if you constantly tell yourself that life is hard, that you are unlucky, or that things never go your way, your mind will seek to confirm those beliefs again and again, until you decide to rewrite the script. But the moment you realize this, when you become aware of the power your thoughts and beliefs hold, everything changes. You finally understand that you are in control, that you always have been. You just couldn't see it before. This realization can be terrifying for many, because acknowledging that you have control also means accepting responsibility for what you create. You can no longer blame others, circumstances, or fate. But at the same time, this is the greatest liberation you can experience. If you have created your reality up until now, that means you also have the power to transform it. You are not doomed to repeat the same mistakes or to relive the same stories. Change is possible, and it begins with a decision, a conscious choice about how you want to think, how you want to feel, and how you want to live. The beliefs you hold today are not truly yours. They were implanted in your mind by your environment, your experiences, and your past. But that doesn't mean you have to cling to them forever. You can reprogram your mind, replacing limiting ideas with new beliefs that empower you. This is the process that Jung referred to as integration. It's not about denying who you were, but about embracing who you truly are. It's about shifting from a life dictated by fear to one guided by authenticity. And this is where many people stop, because changing your mindset is not something that happens with a simple wish. It requires action, consistency, and a daily commitment to choosing thoughts that align with the life you want to create. It's not enough to listen to motivational words or read about psychology. You must apply this knowledge in your life. You need to observe your thoughts and question them, asking yourself every time a limiting belief arises, is this really true? Or is it just a story I was told and chose to believe? Your mind is like a garden. If you plant seeds of doubt, fear, and scarcity, that is exactly what will grow. But if you begin to sow thoughts of abundance, confidence, and possibility, you will gradually start to see real changes in your life. Not because of some kind of magic, but because your mind will finally be aligned with what you truly desire. This entire process can be summarized in one powerful idea. Your external world is a reflection of your internal world. If you want to see changes in your outer reality, you must first create them within yourself. Jung understood this deeply, which is why he emphasized the importance of introspection, of working with the unconscious, and of integrating our shadows. Because only when we dare to look within and transform what we find can we truly change our reality. And so, the question remains, are you willing to look inside yourself and discover what is truly preventing your happiness? Because the first step in shifting your mindset is not searching for answers outside. It is asking yourself the right questions. Questions that will lead you to uncover who you really are, what you truly want, and most importantly, what you are willing to do to achieve it. True transformation begins the moment you take responsibility for what happens in your life. Jung famously said, "What you resist persists." This is a crucial key to understanding why certain painful situations seem to repeat themselves over and over. It's not bad luck. It's not destiny punishing you. It's your unconscious trying to get your attention, showing you something unresolved within you. Think of every difficult situation as a mirror. If you constantly encounter the same conflicts in your relationships, if you feel stuck despite your efforts, it means there is something within you that needs to be acknowledged. You cannot change what you refuse to see. If, instead of avoiding or denying these experiences, you use them as opportunities to understand what part of you is creating them, you will begin to experience deep transformation. The common reaction is to blame external circumstances, the economy, society, the people around us. But Jung teaches us that all of these external factors are merely reflections of our inner world. And once you accept this, you realize something incredibly powerful. You don't need to wait for things outside of you to change in order to be happy. You can start right now with a single shift in perspective. This is where a fundamental principle comes into play: projection. The world you see is, in many ways, a projection of your inner self. Your fears, your wounds, your beliefs, whether conscious or unconscious, are mirrored back to you through your experiences. When you change the way you perceive yourself, the world around you begins to change as well. Carl Jung discovered something profound and revealing. What irritates us about others is actually a reflection of aspects of ourselves that we have repressed or denied. The qualities we criticize, the things that bother us in others, are often a mirror of our own shadow. Every time someone triggers a strong reaction in you, instead of reacting automatically, ask yourself, what part of me is being reflected in this person? Why does this affect me so much? You may discover that there is something in your unconscious that you have yet to integrate. This is one of the keys to shifting your mindset. If you continue projecting your own fears, frustrations, or insecurities onto others, you will remain trapped in the same patterns. But when you start observing these projections and becoming aware of them, you can stop being a victim of your mind and start taking control. The problem is that most people don't want to face their shadow. It's uncomfortable, it's challenging, and many prefer to distract themselves with the external world rather than look within. But Jung warns us, what you do not confront within yourself will eventually manifest in your life as fate. In other words, if you don't work on healing what you carry inside, life will keep showing it to you repeatedly, through situations and people that reflect your unresolved internal conflicts. This is why some people seem to repeat the same stories over and over again. They find themselves attracted to the same toxic relationships, caught in the same conflicts, facing the same financial or emotional struggles. It's not a coincidence. It's their unconscious trying to teach them a lesson. And until they bring that lesson to consciousness, they will remain stuck in the same cycle. But here is where most people get it wrong. They believe that in order to change their reality, they must change their external circumstances. They look for a new partner, a new job, a new country. But no matter how many times they change the setting, if they don't do the internal work, the same problems will appear over and over again. Because the problem was never outside. It was always within. Real change only happens when you dare to look inside yourself and take full responsibility for your life. This doesn't mean blaming yourself or feeling guilty for what you have experienced so far. It means realizing that you have the power to change it. It means stopping the search for something or someone to save you and instead starting to work on yourself. This is where deep self-awareness becomes essential. Jung believed that true happiness is not a superficial state of constant joy, but a profound sense of connection with who you really are. And to achieve this, you must question the beliefs that have limited you, face your fears, explore your shadow, and bring it to the light. This process is neither quick nor easy. It requires commitment, patience, and above all, courage. But when you begin, you realize that happiness was never in the things you thought it was in. It was never in having more money, in seeking validation from others, or in achieving external goals. True happiness is an internal state of peace and clarity. It is living in alignment with yourself, without masks, without pretending to be something you're not. And here's something very important to understand. Many of the things you have been chasing may not even be yours. It's possible that you have been trying to achieve goals that were imposed on you by others. Maybe you were told that to be happy, you need success, wealth, or a perfect relationship. But did you ever stop to ask yourself if that's what you really want? Did you ever take the time to listen to your own voice and discover what truly fulfills you? Jung teaches us that self-knowledge is the path to true freedom. Because when you truly know who you are and what you want, you stop being a slave to other people's expectations. You stop acting out of fear of failure or rejection. You start living from a place of authenticity, purpose, and truth. This is the moment when many people feel liberated because they realize that they never needed to change the external world to be happy. The only thing they needed to change was the way they perceived the world, and more importantly, the way they perceived themselves. This process does not mean that life will suddenly become free of challenges. You will still face difficult moments. You will still experience pain at times. But the difference is that now you won't see these challenges as something working against you, but as opportunities for growth. Because when you change your mindset, you change the way you interpret every experience. And here lies the real secret. Happiness is not something you achieve. It is something you cultivate from within. It does not depend on what you have, what you accomplish, or what others think of you. It depends on how aligned you are with your truth, on how much you have integrated your shadow, on how willing you are to live authentically. Because when you live this way, everything changes. The relationships you attract change. The opportunities that come into your life change. The way you experience each day changes. Not because the world has magically changed, but because you have. And when you change, everything else transforms. This is the power of inner work. This is the key to shifting your mindset. And if you've made it this far, if these words have resonated with you, it means that at some level, you are already ready to take that step. You don't need to wait for tomorrow. You don't need someone else's permission. You can start right now. All it takes is a decision. Because when you begin to change the way you think, the way you see the world, and most importantly, the way you see yourself, everything begins to transform. And not because the world magically changed, but because now you have a new perspective, a new level of awareness. Jung said that what we deny within ourselves controls us from the shadows, but what we accept sets us free. This is the true power of mental transformation, stopping the habit of running from yourself and instead recognizing, understanding, and integrating who you truly are. Maybe for a long time, you felt like something in your life doesn't quite fit, like you're repeating the same mistakes, like there's an invisible barrier between you and the happiness you desire. Now you know why. Now you understand that this block isn't external. It's inside you. It's in the stories you've told yourself, in the beliefs you've held onto, in the parts of yourself you've rejected. And now you have the key to start changing it. But remember, change doesn't happen overnight. It's not an instant revelation or an immediate transformation. It's a process, a journey of self-discovery, a path of questioning everything you once took for granted, of letting go of what no longer serves you, and of opening yourself to new possibilities. And every small step counts. Every time you choose a different thought, every time you decide to act from truth instead of fear, every time you dare to be who you truly are, you are reprogramming your mind. You are changing your reality. And here's the most important thing. You are not alone in this process. We are all on this journey of self-knowledge and evolution. At some point, we have all felt trapped in our own limitations. But what separates those who keep repeating the same patterns from those who truly change their lives is one simple decision: the courage to look within, the courage to face what they have been avoiding, the courage to take the first step toward transformation. So today, I want to invite you to do something. Don't let this knowledge remain just words. Reflect on what you've heard. Apply it to your life. Ask yourself the questions that truly matter. What stories have I been telling myself about who I am? What beliefs have been limiting my happiness? Am I ready to let go of what no longer serves me and start building a new reality from authenticity. And if this message resonated with you, if something inside you clicked, help me share it with more people. There are so many people out there still trapped in their own fears, people who need to hear this, who need to remember that they have the power to change their lives. Let me know in the comments, which part of this message impacted you the most? What are you ready to change in your life? I want to read your thoughts. I want to know how this knowledge can help transform your reality. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications, because in every video we continue to explore these topics, diving deeper into the incredible power of our minds and the path to a more conscious, fulfilling life. Share this video with someone who needs it, someone you feel is searching for answers, because by doing so, you're not just helping spread this message, you're also contributing to a community of people who, like you, are ready to wake up, to change, and to live from their truth. Remember, life doesn't change when external circumstances change. Life changes when you decide to change your mind, your perception, and your energy. And that power has always been in your hands. It's time to use it. See you in the next video.